Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times to discuss movies and horror. And today I bring you what I watched in the month of March.
It's coffee time!
In March, I managed to watch a couple of horror movies. Didn't get to watch way too much, so this video is not gonna be too long, but as always, I'm gonna go through everything that I watched through my diary on Letterboxd, and also let you know a couple of TV shows that I have watched as well. And yeah, let's dive into it. As always, I'm just gonna let you know what I thought about the movies. It's all gonna be spoiler free, so let's dive into it. All right, let's check that diary. Let's scroll back. So on the 3rd of March, I watched a movie that I was really excited about, and that is Monstrous. And I was excited about it because obviously the main character is played by Christina Ricci, and I absolutely adore her. Since I was a kid, I was obsessed with her, basically because she was in Casper and she was in the Addams Family, and I loved her characters. So I've always really loved her, and I know she has not, had perhaps a lot of good titles throughout the years, and I was excited to see her in another horror movie. She plays the role of Laura. She is a mother of a 7-year-old called Cody, and they are running away from her abusive husband. So they decide to relocate somewhere where the husband will not be able to find them. And we're also in the 1950s, where things were a little bit different. They moved to this remote, beautiful farmhouse next to a lake, and everything is going well until the kid Cody starts to see something dark. There is a darkness that comes, and Laura is gonna have to try to figure out what's going on. She's still dealing with all her trauma and everything from her past, that it's all gonna come to the surface. And I really liked a lot of things about this movie. I liked the mood that the movie had. I loved the colors. It had a lot of good things going for it. It is a bit more of a psychological thriller than a horror, and I feel like for me, my biggest issue was the pacing, because the movie does start very slow and it does take a lot of time until things catch up and it starts to get really interesting. But I feel like for a one-time watch is perfectly fine, and you get to see Christina Ricci. Moving on to Scream 6. I was really excited for this one. I did enjoy Scream 5 and I was looking forward to this one. I know it's not a perfect movie, but I think because I've been burned before with other sequels, like the new trilogy of Halloween, that were really disappointing for me, I feel like at least with the Scream franchise, I'm still able to have fun when I watch the movies in the cinema, and at least the directors have tried to respect the formula as much as they can, bringing new characters into that formula. So I feel like I am still satisfied, even though obviously they have plot holes and they are not perfect, but they're still a lot of fun. The survivors from Scream 5 decide to move to New York City, so it is one of those Scream movies that it's not in Woodsboro, and I feel like New York did bring a lot of cool things into the mix, especially the subway scene, which was one of my favorite ones. And I did find that they did a good job when it comes to create suspicion in a lot of different characters, where you were questioning a lot who could be possibly Ghostface in this one. Also, it is a lot of fun to try to figure out if it's one or two. And I really did dig the opening scene. I think that they went for a really bold move, and for me it did pay off at the end of the day. And I feel like if you're a Scream fan, you will enjoy Scream 6, even though I know I've heard from several people that really love the franchise that they were not extremely happy with the reveal, which it's always a risk that the directors take with the reveal, because some people might not enjoy that part. It's a very delicate part of the movie when it comes to the Scream franchise. But all in all, I had a good time, so I would totally rewatch this. And now we're going back to the past, to a movie from 1994. So my partner has not seen a lot of the horror classics. I mean, the ones that are not super obvious, like Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween and all of those. But the more obscure ones, or I mean, not obscure to me, but he had never seen Pumpkinhead, so we finally watched that one last year. And I finally managed to get a copy in Blu-ray of part 2. So we watched Pumpkinhead II blood wings. And I really enjoyed it, but you gotta keep in mind that this is one of those 90s flicks that was supposed just to be fun and cheesy. And part of why I really like part 1 and 2 is because of Pumpkinhead himself. I love the creature. I just love how it looks. I love the practical effects on it. And I just had a blast with this one. So it also depends what kind of horror that you like. But Pumpkinhead is basically someone that was tortured and murdered years ago by a group of teenagers and now comes back for revenge. And I love him. So yeah, if you're looking for a good like old school movie, cheesy, with a really cool creature and you've never seen Pumpkinhead, I do recommend. And then I watched something that it was not horror. It is a movie that came out last year, and the main actress is Tilda Swinton, and I really like her. But I decided to skip it in the cinema because I didn't feel like it was maybe a movie that I was gonna love. But I finally found it on Amazon Prime, so I watched it, and that is 3,000 Years of Longing. It follows a doctor that during a conference in Istanbul buys a small lamp at a store, and when she cleans the lamp, she realizes there's a genie inside and comes out and tells her that she has 3 wishes and blah blah blah. And I really like that, you know, this gave me kind of Arabian vibes, and it gave me, you know, like one of those movies that has tales inside of the same movie, because we follow different stories that explain the past and the background of the genie. There is romance, there's a little bit of everything, and I feel like this movie is visually stunning and it had really good moments, but at the end of the day it just really didn't have a heart. I felt like the connection between the doctor and the genie was really not there. So for me, it looked nice, but on the inside it was hollow. We go back to horror, and I watched Old People. This is a Netflix exclusive film from Germany. I also reviewed this one. A lot of the movies that I'm going to talk about I've probably already reviewed on the channel. So this one is about a woman that is traveling back home with her children to visit her sister because she's getting married. But in the town where her sister lives, most of the population is just really old people, retired people, and also the doctors and nurses that work in the retirement home, and one of them being her sister. And then one night, all of a sudden, we see that during a storm, the old people in their retirement house start to exhibit really weird behavior, and almost like zombies, one after the other one, turn against humans, but like just the younger ones. And it was a quite interesting film. I did feel like this movie had good messages, you know, like exploring a little bit the theme of old people, how society sees them and treats them, how people treat them as well, how we tend to forget about them or not treat them with patience and respect that they deserve. Also how sometimes they are not treated that well in these retirement houses or these kind of hospices. And I felt like they had a really good idea with all of these, and it was great to see that integrated into horror. But it didn't quite, you know, this theme wasn't really quite explored to a level where it was actually meaningful. But the horror was nice. It was gory, it was intense, it was violent, so it had that going for it. The next movie, honestly, I would not have chosen to see this movie by myself, but we went to a sneak peek night, and basically you get any movie that they want. We do this sometimes when we feel like it, because, you know, that way we get to see movies we would not have chosen otherwise, and that is the case of this one, which was called Hunt. After President Park's murder in 1980, North Korea sees this as an opportunity to send some spies to the country, and I don't normally watch this type of movies, but whenever I have, like in the Fantasy Film Fest, they also tend to put some of these films that are a little bit more political. Then I find myself really enjoying them. Now, I feel like this movie, what it had going for it is a lot of really cool action bits, and that is most of what the movie was good for all of the action-packed scenes that we got. So if you like spy thrillers set in the 80s, this one is going to be perfect for you. And the next one, we can quickly graze over that one, because that is 65, which is probably one of the biggest disappointments of the year for me. I mean, not that I had really high expectations going to it, but it ended up being so boring that I nearly fell asleep towards the end because I just couldn't take it anymore. In this movie, Adam Driver plays the character of a pilot from a spaceship that goes on a mission in order to get money to pay for his daughter's medicines and treatment because his daughter is sick. But things are not gonna go so well for him because the plane crashes in an unknown planet to him, and he realizes that he's stuck in the planet with one little girl and a bunch of dinosaurs. You would think that a movie with Adam Driver in a bunch of dinosaurs would be cool and fun and entertaining, but it was boring, and even the CGI of the animals at times was not that great. I don't know. I also felt like the editing and everything in this movie felt a little bit off. But, you know, be my guest. Go ahead and watch it because we can have completely different opinions. But this was just, for me, one of my biggest disappointments this year. And then I watched a movie that was actually fun for me. Another one that was not perfect, but it is Shazam! Fury of the Gods. You know, when I went into this one, after the disappointments that I have been having recently with Marvel and DC, I was just expecting to have fun. That's all I wanted, you know, expectations, keep them low. I was like, you know, as long as I have fun, we're good. You know, I just really like Zachary Levi, and I'm a little bit biased because of that. And I just wanted to have fun, and not all the jokes landed for me, sadly. I feel like I had a lot more fun with the jokes in the first movie than in this one. But, you know, bringing a sequel of a movie that was loved is hard. In this one, we see him and his brothers and sisters fighting against the daughters of Atlas, and we see a little bit of the god realm. You know, it was nice, but don't expect too much when it comes to the plot or anything. Just expect to have a good time. In the month of March, I also watched the Boston Strangler, that is currently in Disney Plus or Hulu, depending where you live. So this is a true crime story movie. It stars Keira Knightley as Loretta Loughlin, and she was the reporter for the newspaper that first started talking about the Boston Strangler. She figured out that this was a serial killer. She figured out that these murders that have been happening in town were all connected, and she figured out before the police did. So obviously the police was not happy about it. So she starts really getting deep into the investigation. She even puts her marriage at risk because for her, uncovering the truth, finding the killer, and stopping women from being murdered is what mattered the most. I enjoyed the film because I really like slow burning true crime investigation. I just really like that, but the pacing is quite it's quite slow, so you gotta be into it. And if you're familiar with this story, you probably already know, you know, what you're gonna get with the film. But I really enjoyed it, and I do recommend you guys to give it a chance. It's also a movie that you can find on video on demand, so you don't have to go to the cinema. And if you like true crime like I do, I feel like you will enjoy it. Especially if you love movies like The Zodiac Killer and stuff like that. It has kind of like that vibe. And the last movie that I managed to watch in the month of March was a B-horror movie that I found on Amazon Prime, and I wanted to give it a chance, and that is The Dead Girl in Apartment 03. It's a movie from 2022, so it just came out last year, and it is about this girl that finds out one day that her roommate has died in her room, and the police comes to investigate. It seems like it has been a possible murder, so they are trying to figure out what happened. It is a very, very slow-paced film. I mean, it really takes a long time until really exciting things happen. And I feel like, sadly, they are kind of revealing the ending, or you know, they're kind of revealing already what's gonna happen, perhaps a little bit too early on in the film, which takes away a little bit of the tension, that kind of anticipation for the horror and trying to figure out what's going on. I feel like that was taken away because they revealed a little bit much too early. The movie did have a strong main character. I feel like the actress did a really good job, and it was a really interesting story. However, it was not as much horror as I expected, and it ended up not just living up to the expectations, I guess, that I had. It was just an interesting story, but it didn't quite work. And then I watched a TV show called Swarm on Amazon Prime. I also have a spoiler-free review of the whole series. Now, this is kind of like a horror comedy satire. It's almost like a really dark comedy that it is criticizing a little bit the fan bases that are a little bit too extreme when it comes to defend their beloved singers. The series follows Dre, played by Dominique Fishbone, who is absolutely fantastic in this TV show, and she plays the role of a teenager that is obsessed with a singer called Nyjah. We all know that the singer is supposed to represent Beyonce, but for trademark reasons, obviously they had to change that. And she is such a huge fan that whoever says anything bad about the singer, she is ready to hunt them down and put them in their place. Now, this is a story that it is kind of also criticizing true crime documentaries, and it dives deeper into the serial killer documentaries. So you already know that Dre is gonna turn into a serial killer, and the first episode was just so weird but so fantastic. At the end of it, I was like, what the heck did I just watch? But I was so addicted, I just kept binging the show because I couldn't stop. And even though it was not perfect, this show is something you need to watch if you love true crime, if you love horror, because it was just so different. And the last thing that I watched that I also got super addicted to is this TV series on Disney Plus called How to Catch a Smuggler, and it's basically 2 seasons where you get to see police at airports, whatever post is being received, and they are controlling for drugs, for human trafficking, for bringing animals or food that are not allowed into the United States. And it's just really interesting to me. You also see police doing controlled deliveries of drugs to catch the people that, you know, are a little bit higher on the narcos scene. And it's just so intriguing to me. I just love to see it. It's call it a guilty pleasure, but I was super addicted, so I binged the 2 seasons really quickly. So if you're interested in that, it's on Disney Plus. Alright guys, so that is everything that I managed to watch in the month of March. Let me know down below what's the best thing that you watch in the month of March. If there's any recommendations for me, please leave them down below. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you all, as always, in our next coffee time. Bye!